Hi, I'm Shilpa. Now, when you hear the word toxic, you probably have an association with it. And then you hear the word positive and you have an association with it. But would you put toxic and positive together? Unlikely, right? It's almost like a juxtaposition. And yet there is something like that called toxic positivity. And it seems to be quite rampant in the workplace. So let's get to know a little more about it. And for that, I'm so glad to have Dr. Ratna Isaac with us. Dr. Ratna is a psychotherapist and a supervisor and has been in private practice for more than 20 years, right? And she's also a writer, and she's currently in the process of writing a book. Co-writing a book with her colleagues from Nimhan Centis on reflective practices in psychotherapy. Dr. Ratna, we're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Hello, nice to be here.
So maybe we start with something as simple as what really is toxic positivity and how do we see it evident in workspaces?
Okay, so I think like you said, you don't usually associate the word toxic and positivity together. So to understand what this means, because positivity in general is a good thing, it's useful to sort of look at a continuum. Imagine you have negativity at one end and positivity at the other end. Now, at the extreme negative end, everything feels like it can't work, or I can't do it, or other people are not really going to be helpful. And obviously, that is an attitude which is difficult. Then, as you move towards the middle, you start becoming a little bit more realistic. But as you move towards the other end, again, you start being a little unrealistic. So toxic positivity is the end of the spectrum where you feel everything is fine, I can do anything, everything is going to work, all our plans are. So when you think like that, what you're doing actually is you're sort of denying a possible negative component of anything. And when you deny the negative, when you deny that maybe some things are not going to be exactly as I imagine, or maybe my capabilities are not stretchable endlessly, then what you're doing is actually denying half your reality. So that is a problem. You can imagine for an individual, if you're denying half your reality, then, and for a company actually, the biggest difficulty with denial is that if you don't actually acknowledge that there's a problem, then you don't solve it.
Right.
You don't actually address it. So as a person, if I feel I'm absolutely perfect, then I'm not actually trying to change or to grow or to get better. Similarly, if a company atmosphere is saying that everything we do is absolutely wonderful, then there is no room for growth. There is no room for feedback. Managers don't actually get to hear what workers on the ground are experiencing, which are real roadblocks. Individuals sort of don't get to think freely, feel comfortable to express what's actually on their minds. So it becomes a kind of a restrictive atmosphere where only one version of the truth is allowed. And that leads to, apart from frustration or apart from employees kind of feeling like I'm not really being heard, it also leads to what is called quiet quitting.
Quiet
quitting, where people just quietly leave the job because, it's not like there's some one big issue or something, but they're just finding or feeling like they're not being heard. Or there is no room for them. So, I think that kind of summarizes.
Quiet quitting. That's an interesting term. So, the organization doesn't really get to know what's going on. And so they continue to labor under the assumption that everything is great. But on the field, the employee is struggling and just there is no recourse, there is nowhere to turn, and they just rather leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what I understand is that organizations or companies can unknowingly, inadvertently impose this sort of toxic positive expectation from their employees, right? So what are some of the signs of this toxic positivity that we might see in a workspace?
So I'm glad you said unknowingly or unwittingly, because I think for the most part, when we are being positive, we believe that I'm being encouraging or I'm being supportive. So the idea that you're actually maybe suppressing part of someone else's experience doesn't register. But it is something which does happen. Like research suggests that almost quarter of employees feel they can't really talk about problems or things are not going well, or depression, anxiety, or anything they may be experiencing without feeling judged.
Oh.
And many people, almost 75% of people sort of say that I make that choice myself. I'll ignore the negatives so that I can be happy.
Oh.
So what an organization needs to be sensitive to is, does this happen in their communication with each other?
Mm-hmm.
So say, for instance, if a senior person is sort of presenting a project report, and they're just saying like, okay, this didn't work, but it's not actually a problem. It's no big deal. It'll get sorted out. We'll figure it out next time. That is kind of goes on the toxic side. Whereas if instead you're presenting it like, okay, it didn't work. We need to understand why. It is something which is like, I'm a little bit worried about, and we need to figure out how to get it better. So that's a much more reality-based language. Okay, so the first thing to do is to sort of say, no, am I acknowledging both sides in a way of the experience? Secondly, in the interpersonal context, we can ask, am I validating someone else's negative experience? Okay, so say a colleague comes and tells you, no, I don't know whether I'm going to get my bonus this year, or I'm not sure what's going to happen. Are you going to say, don't worry, you got it, I'm sure it'll all be fine? Because then that person has no room to actually express their worry. But instead, if you say something like, it must be quite stressful for you not knowing how much bonus you're going to get, like, maybe we can hope for the best and plan for the worst. Something like that feels a lot more real. Okay. Similarly with juniors, if your junior comes and tells you that I'm overwhelmed with the amount of work that I have, a toxically positive manager would just say, no, you got it. Don't worry. You'll be fine. I know you have it in you. I have full confidence. But that may not be actually acknowledging what's going on. So instead, if you can say something like, I see that you're worried about this. Let's talk about what you're worried about. Let's see what I can help you with. Then you're actually uncovering what might be going on.
Right.
Also, sometimes there may not be room for someone, like if someone is being over positive with you, is there room for you to say that you're saying great and go ahead, but I'm actually not so sure? So broadly, I think what organizations need to be sensitive to is, are they creating space for negative feedback? And this can be a real kind of, difficulty if they don't do that, because in some organizations, there's a sort of culture where any doubt that's expressed or any question that is raised about a plan is sort of interpreted as, this means you're not on our side. You're not a team player, or you're being negative, or you're not actually on board. And so that is definitely a problematic culture, because if I really care about something, then I do want to find out what the problems are and fix them.
Right.
No, so when noticing problems is interpreted as lack of care or lack of belief, then that can definitely be a difficulty.
So just on the last part that you said, it all sounds like it's a defensive approach for the corporate, is it? Because it's perceived as an attack or
As
a
an
lack of
attack.
faith in.
Yeah. Yes.
So where does that come from? Where do you think that difficulty to stay with that negativity comes from? As a culture, I mean.
Well, I guess it sort of depends on broadly your level of security. So I can say if an individual is secure, they can take the good and the bad without feeling overwhelmed by it. If an organization is secure, if a manager is secure, then it's easier to take the good and the bad. So generally in psychology, whenever anybody is very rigid, we interpret that as, what are they protecting? That there is some sense that even a little bit of negative, it will overwhelm. I can't actually take it.
Right.
So, I think that's to do with security. It's to do with a little bit of flexibility. It's also to do with willingness to have actually egalitarian relationships.
Right.
In our culture, we kind of we speak about equality, 360-degree appraisal and everything. But in reality, I think you kind of know that you should keep your boss happy. You can't say anything that might actually upset them. So is there an ability to sort of non-defensively take feedback?
Feel safe where the environment is safe, right? It would be a very interesting conversation to think about what makes organizations secure. Didn't think of that.
Yeah, I think that's something an organization needs to look into. But in general, if you look at those organizations which are a little bit more considerate of mental health or, saying willing to put into employee and the employee's well-being, these are organizations who feel they're doing well.
That's very interesting. So in your opinion, what can organizations do very intentionally to move away from being?
So basically, it goes back to just allowing space for negative emotions to also be expressed. If a negative feedback, experience, whatever is discussed, instead of trying to dismiss it straight away, to sort of say, let's sit and understand, why are you saying this? So if an employee is saying, I'm not happy, instead of saying that, but you should be happy, we say, okay, let's understand why you're not happy. Maybe there's something we can do. Maybe it is something that you need to do only. But there's room at least to have that discussion. So I think that room to have that discussion is something that is really important. Designated spaces in an organization sometimes, or designated times, or these are meetings where we kind of do this sort of thing. That's something that can be useful. Asking what's going on and what can I do to help. So that's the important next step.
So coming alongside, they want to collaborate and not just saying, this is your problem, fix it.
Yes. Or this is not really a problem, so nobody needs to fix it. So we're saying, what can we do to help? And I think it's also important that it's not just a verbal thing of what can we do to help, but the employee needs to feel that the organization actually responded to what I was saying. So then you get invested. Then you feel like a valuable member of the team. Then you feel like, okay, this is a two-way street. And in that circumstance, employees are much likely to give more to the organization. So here, I'm just talking about, what happens on a day-to-day basis anyway. Organizations can also consider sort of proactively having workshops or programs that will teach some of these skills that can build, let's say, emotional quotient, which is about like how do you understand and acknowledge your emotions, how do you express your emotions, and how do you manage your emotions. They can be workshops on like communication skills, which is how do we, if I have to say something difficult to the next person, then how do I do it? So I think that there are some things which can be done on the ground, and then there are also some things that can be done proactively to sort of create an atmosphere where there is space for positive and negative. Now, so far, I'm still talking about like the normal range of emotion. Like everybody experiences highs and lows and positive and negative. But for some of us, it can go beyond that. We can also experience anxiety or depression or some sort of mental health condition.
Okay.
Now, this is also not it's not something which many people experience. It's not something which precludes you from being able to be a good worker.
Right.
As a therapist, I mean, anxiety, depression, they're like common cold. And I heard this quote once that if you've never been depressed in your life, you're probably not paying attention. See, I think the idea that these are things which can happen, they can come and go. They don't have to be like character flaws or some kind of, permanent mark on an individual, but instead we can sort of accommodate them within the frame of what we do, offer some support for it, create space for it. This also can be helpful for employees who are struggling, because personal preference is also denial. Then the organization also encourages that denial. Then we see people ending up in a really bad place because I have just been suppressing or carrying my anxiety for 5 years and now I'm collapsing.
Right.
So,
That was very enlightening, Dr. Ratna. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I'm sure that this information has been useful for you too. And we would love to be able to assist you and help you in knowing more about this, or even how to help your organization move from that place if you need to. So do feel free to contact us. Thank you.